Hello and welcome, I'm Ceri Griffiths and I'm working in association with Katy Designs. Now I'm really excited to share with you the latest two moulds that we've produced in the Creative Cake system. What we've done is I've looked at buttons. So here we go, I've looked at the button range and we've given you a button hearts mould. And of course you have spare buttons, we'll look closer at that in a moment. And we've done a button border for you. So before I start anything, let's just mention, I'm not using just regular sugar paste or fondant in this. I'm actually using something called adjusted paste, which is just fondant or sugar paste with some Tylose into it. If you watch to the end of the video, there'll be more details on that for you there. So, time to get started. Now, with any one of our moulds, the first thing I usually do is I'll reach for my cornstarch or my corn flour, and I'll take a large dusting brush and I'll just get into the mould. Now the cornstarch is going in there rather than using icing sugar or powdered sugar, because the cornstarch will take the moisture out of the mould, therefore nothing is likely to stick. If I used icing sugar and there was any moisture, it would become a syrup and it would grip your paste. So once I've done that, tap out the excess. Now we always end up putting too much paste in a mould, so I would say underestimate, you can always add more, and if you find you run out, you can always take the paste out, remold it and put it back in again. Now I tend to have very hot hands, so therefore I knead it in. Now with the mould I will start at the top edge and work my way down to the point, but that's just a personal preference. So I give my piece of paste a bit of a shape as if it is heart shaped, and I'll press it into the mould, concentrating on the top edge. Now once I've got the paste pressed into the top edge of the mould, I will then work the body of the paste down towards the point. So, working my way down. Now when I'm close to it, I'm just going to use my thumb pad just to wipe off any excess paste. At this point, I don't care how rough the back looks, I'm going to be working on it anyway. Once I've done that, come back in, press it down a little further, just making sure you get all the way up to the edges and that you can see this point here, the point where the heart joins is the bit you might miss. Once it's all in there, I'll just take a rolling pin and I'll roll over it a couple of times just to flatten off the back, just to clean up and give me a level edge. Work our way around, making sure all of these edges here, all of these are nice and clean. You want to be able to see the edge of the paste when you open the mould back. So now I've got my paste in there. Because it's a really flexible mould, let the mould help you demold itself. So what I'll do is I'll first release one end, then I'll release the other, and voila. And as you can see, you get a really detailed heart there, lots and lots of button detail, and we will look at what we can do with those buttons in a few minutes. But great mould, great for a cookie, obviously we had heart-shaped cookie, or you could even go with a small round cutter and cut sections out of this, or diamonds for other shapes. So let's put that one to one side. Now in the mould you will see I have a large, medium and small. I would use the same technique for all three of these hearts that you've just seen me do. There are the little buttons on here, so let's take a little moment to have a look at the buttons on there. Again, as with any moulded shape, go in, put some cornstarch in, tap the excess out, take a small bit of paste, I just take a small ball of it. As I said, if it's not enough, you can always pop it out, re-roll it into a ball to put it back in. Push it into the button shape. You could use your thumb as a thumb swipe, or if you've got something like a plastic modelling tool, you can always come in and slice the excess off with that. Personally, I never use a metal knife with a mould because I don't want to damage my mould. The moulds are really flexible, let the mould do its work, but you don't need to be scarring the mould or maybe cutting it with a blade. So make sure the edges are really clean, press down the back with your fingers, and then I come in, and as you can see, I'm actually bending the mould back on itself just to let the button out. Now, if by chance the button did change shape at any point, just roll it between your fingers and you can reshape it. Now, the reason I put buttons in there is if I wanted to make this more three-dimensional, I could do extra buttons and actually place them on top. So what I would do is I would end up with an effect. I could take other buttons maybe in different colours and actually put them on top to make it more dimensional. So let's put the button and that to the side. As I said, I'll show you more finishes in a few minutes on that one. So let's move on to the button border. Now with the button border, as you can see, it's I believe about an 8-inch strip. And what I'm doing is relatively the same process, but there are a few things you should watch out for. Firstly, cornstarch, corn flour, whatever it is. I put too much in there, but it's better to have too much than too little, and I'll always tap out the excess anyway. So that's my border mould actually dusted, ready to go. Now I'm going to take a bit of paste. Again, it's the adjusted paste, it isn't regular sugar paste or fondant, and I'll roll it into a sausage. Now, there is never a way to know exactly how much paste you're going to need. As I said before, it's better to err on the side of caution because you can always add more to the back of the mould. It'll save you time when you're cleaning off the front. So I roll out a sausage, it's a bit long, take that little bit off here. I'll lay this down the centre. Now as you can see, if I was to put this to one side, the sausage is about half the width of the entire mould. I think that's a good guesstimate of how much you'll need. You're probably going to need to take some out of here afterwards, but best to have enough in there to start with. So a little bit of cornstarch on my fingers, corn flour, and I walk my fingers along the mould, and all I'm doing is embedding the paste down into the mould. Then once I've done that, I'll spend a little more time working the paste up to the edges of the mould. Now, luckily enough, I've got exactly the right amount of paste in here. However, if I did want to add more, I would just put another sausage in the middle and I'd press it down and add more paste into it that way. Once I've got the paste in there and I'm happy with it, I come in and I'm giving it a gentle roll. If you press down really hard, you'll make the paste wave and move out of the mould. But by rolling it along the back, you'll actually end up with a nice flat surface. Now, you'll note I've actually left on the mould quite a big piece at the end that I didn't cut off. I use that to help me demold it. So by turning this over now, if I open the mould out and walk my fingers backwards, I end up with a beautiful button strip. So then I'll take my knife and I will take the ends off, and that will give me a button strip that I could actually use as a border around the bottom of a cake. I could cut it into squares so it could be toppers for a cupcake. I could lay strips next to them and cut squares out for cookies. I could actually, if I want, build it into something three-dimensional. I would need to add a little more Tylo powder to my paste to make sure that when this dried I could make it into a round box or something, but that gives me the basics of what I need. So let's look at another couple of techniques using this button border. So again, dust down the middle. I'm going to just do a section of this because you've already seen me do it all. If I take little balls of paste and focus on the bigger buttons, take some sort of modelling tool and actually put the coloured paste into the individual buttons. Let's do another one over here. Now I'm using a modelling tool because if I use my fingers are likely to pull the paste out, and the quality of the moulds means it will want to release the paste. So the more you mess around with it, the more you'll pull the paste out. Let's take another little bit of another colour. Let's do one other button. Let's choose this one here, coming in, pop that in place. Then what I do is when I'm adding then my piece of paste over the top, see, it's this one. Again, I roll out my sausage, I lay it over the top, and I press it down into it. As I said, I'm not doing the whole strip this time, but this does show the versatility of the mould, and I could just do sections of it. Give it a gentle roll over, make sure the edges are clean. Now what you want to do is when you've looked at the mould, if I pull these edges back, you want to be able to see that there's no fringing. That'll give you a really nice clean edge. Then I can bend this back on itself, peel it back, and as you can see, the buttons are already in there and they're already coloured. That's another quicker way to do it. The only trouble you'll have is if you overfill, like I've overfilled here, you'll see that the colour of the button will seep into the rest of the band. So let's show you on the heart another way to do this same technique. So here's the paste heart that I made a few minutes ago. So let's take a bit of kitchen towel or kitchen paper, just so I've got something to work on. And then I'm going to bring into play 4 dust colours. Now I tend to use luster dust colours for this technique. You could use plain colours. Obviously, because of the texture of this, you could actually airbrush it should you choose, or use metallics. I then take my normal brush and I'll usually start with the lightest colour. Now this is a pearl luster at the end, so I'm going to do that last. So I'm going to take the yellow, and as you can see, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to focus on a couple of the buttons and colour them yellow. I'm then going to work on the green, and again come in, put some of the colour on that one, then I'm going to come in and take a little bit of the pink and again highlight 1 or 2 of the buttons. So that's all my little bits of colour put on there. Then what I'm going to do is I've got one of these, it puffs out air. Now you could use a really clean plastic bottle, one that when you squeeze it puffs air out, because blowing onto something food is not really hygienic. So I'm just going to come in and puff away any excess dust. So you don't want any dust left that might fall on your cake. Then I'm going to take some of the white, this is pearl luster, and I'm just going to polish the whole of the surface of this. And again, just puff off the excess. Now what I've done there is I've given it a real subtle, delicate colouring. This will be good if I was doing a christening or I was doing a wedding, something along that line. Now let's put this down and show you some that I took a little more time with previously, just so you can see what is achievable. So as you can see, this is one of the hearts I did earlier. And this will give you an idea of, once they've actually been sitting for an hour or 2, you can pick them up and handle them, but they will still be soft enough when you put glue on the back that you could mould it around the side of a cake. And just so you can see what the other 2 sizes looked like, this was the medium and the small. So quite a nice grouping. I've done the 3 sizes because obviously I'm thinking bottom tier, middle tier, top tier. I'm actually thinking cookies, I'm thinking cupcakes. Very, very versatile. If you're someone who does chocolate, you could actually use the smallest one here and make individual chocolates as favours if you're doing a wedding or an event. When it comes to the button border, I used exactly the same process, and here it is. Now, I did it, and I've let this one dry because obviously I'm using it for the filming here. I could do this when the paste was still soft and then attach it to the cake. Don't attach it to the cake and then try doing the dusting. You'll have too much fallout onto your cake. So I'm hoping you really enjoyed the new moulds. I'm excited about them and I'm excited to see what you can do with them. I know the team here are busily beavering away doing cakes and cookies and cupcake toppers, and they're making these on little toothpicks so they can actually stand them on tops of stuff. They're having far too much fun in the team room. So anyway, I hope that helps. I hope it's something you'll find very, very useful, and that's the newest additions to the Creative Cake System. Bye-bye now.